Welcome and welcome back. This is Chris and my beloved wife, and excited to talk about this topic, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's a bit disturbing for some. They've never heard about it, so I think it's very important. It is a very ancient battle war going on, and it's been recorded in the annals of history, and from generation to generation, there are a very small people that will continue to carry this information forward. But you just won't hear about it because it's repressed, right? So the title, the date today is January 24th, year of our Savior, 2026. And the title of this video is The 6,000 Year War, Part 4. Part 5, ladies and gentlemen. So continuing, and I just want to take a moment, ladies and gentlemen. I look at somebody like Sean Ryan as a hero, ladies and gentlemen, as a warrior, not only physically but also he's a warrior and scholar. I look at that, and he said something that he said, "I just don't understand where is God when these horrible things about children, and you look about the." Like I said, these satanic pedophiles that are in operation are ruling the world. The world is ruled by a satanic pedophiles. Our only hope is in Jesus Christ. Is showing that, in Benjamin Franklin, is when you have people come in and corrupt our institutions, we have to get right with God. And so that's the reason why that you have these Zionist Jews that know that they've lost Gen Z. So they've kind of lost the political aspect, right? And so they know that their last hope is through the churches, and that's why I think they have 1,000 pastors are going there and they're performing their satanic ritual at the Wailing Wall. They're paying homage to Satan because that's what you do as a congressman or senator or president. You pay homage to a foreign country, and you also pay homage to a foreign god. This is not the God of Abraham. This is not Jehovah. This is not Jesus Christ. And so, and you're not going to understand that if you don't understand this 6,000 war between the children of light and the children of darkness. And it is also to understand that the seed of Satan makes Israelites to twofold child of hell. So there are my blood, my ancestors that are twice as evil than the seed of Satan. Because we do everything, we kind of are the makers of civilization. So you have people that have converted and they do some real horrible and sick stuff. So I guess what I'm trying to say is to get right, to combat the amount of child trafficking. This is a spiritual battle. And when you have Judeo-Christianity, all that does is bring forth more curses on Americans and throughout the world. So we have to combat it at the religious level. Judeo-Christianity is an invented word. So we have to get back to Christ. Our churches need to boldly proclaim Christ. And that's what we're talking about. Then you'll have 2 Chronicles, right? 2 Chronicles 7:14. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says what? If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land, right? So that's what we're seeing. So picking up, ladies and gentlemen, on this 6,000 year war, what do we see? We see the Edomites now, the satanic seed line is now occupying Judea. Esau and his descendants called Edomites dwelt in Mount Seir in Genesis 36, verse 8. Genesis 36, verse 8, which God gave to Esau for a possession. Deuteronomy 2:5, and Joshua 24:4. So I'm going to take this moment so that people can understand. From Abraham, you have Ishmael. Ishmael wasn't from the promised seed, but Ishmael deserves a right for inheritance. But what is America doing? Right? 7 countries in 5 years. We're going and disrupting their inheritance, destroying their countries, and then we're importing them over here. This is all under the banner of religion, as under Judaism, and that people are beating their chests and saying, we got a Muslim problem in this country. We have a Jewish problem in this country. Under the religion of Judaism, what do we have? We have communism. It comes from Judaism. Communism, under that banner, you have socialism, liberalism, and feminism. All of that has destroyed the family unit. Number 2, you have open society, right? Open society. And then you have multiculturalism. Multiculturalism. This is intentional. This is a replacement theory, ladies and gentlemen. And then you have transgenderism. Transgenderism doesn't come from Islam. It comes from Judaism. That's why Jesus Christ was condemning the Pharisees. And that's why the Jews today say that the Babylonian Talmud is rooted in Phariseeism. It can't be any clearer than this, ladies and gentlemen. That's why Rabbi Stephen S. Wise said so clearly that, the Pharisees mark the end of Hebrewism and the beginning of the Talmudism, or beginning of Phariseeism. All right, continuing, we have Esau and his descendants called Edomites dwelt in Mount Seir. Genesis 36, verse 8, which God gave to Esau for a possession, Deuteronomy 2:5, and Joshua 24:4. What do we see here in, this is an interesting quote taken from Easton's Bible Dictionary under Edom. Quote, Idumea is another name, Greek word for Edom or Edomites, is Idumea. Idumea, Ezekiel 35, verse 15, the land of Edom was mountainous. It was called the land or Mount Seir, right? And if you turn in your Bibles, ladies and gentlemen, you can see right here in those Bible maps to give you a reference point. Remember that Esau, Idumea, was below, right? You look, actually, it was kind of below here, down by Simeon, right? Down here, I don't know if you can see that, ladies and gentlemen. But we have, later on, we have the blending of Idumea is right here. And notice that Judea is above there. So that's where the Maccabees, right, shows you that went down and conquered these people that would, kill Israelites, and then they would flee back into their mountains and under safety. And so finally, our people got tired of it, and we went and conquered them. And then they, as always, right, if they're not excluded from society, they rise to positions, and then they take control of those institutions. And that's exactly what Herod did. Herod was not an Israelite. He was an Edomite. So continuing, Idumea, Ezekiel 35:15, the land of Edom was mountainous. It was called the land, or Mount Seir. The rough hills on the east side of Arabah. It extended from the head of the Gulf of Aqaba, the Atlantic Gulf, to the foot of the Dead Sea, and contained, among other cities, the rock-hewn Sela, generally known by the Greek name Petra. I've got a book on Petra, very interesting. E. Raymond Capt, a friend of my family, wrote a book on Petra. It was also an area of the giants, ladies and gentlemen. The giants, and the Edomites ended up, I think, routing out the giants. So really interesting. Edom was always a warlike people. So we see Greek name Petra. It was a wild and rugged region traversed by fruitful valleys. Its old capital was Basra. The early inhabitants of the land were Horites. they were destroyed by the Edomites, end quote. See Deuteronomy 2, verse 12. The Edomites were driven from Petra, Mount Seir, westward by the Nabateans in 312 BC. And before the middle of the 2nd century BC, they were occupying not only southern Judah, but also Hebron and the country to its north as far as Beth Zur. Dictionary of the Bible by John D. Davis, 1934, page 332. In order for the reader to understand who the scribes, Pharisees, and Sadducees were, whom Jesus Christ vehemently condemned, a small amount of biblical history must be presented. The population of southern Judea was comprised of a mixed multitude, including Edomites. As shown earlier, more than 95% of the entire house of Israel was taken into captivity and dispersed throughout the world in what is called the diaspora in Greek, right? That's all 12 or 13 tribes of Israel were taken into captivity by the Assyrian and Babylonian invasions. Because why? Because Israel, all 13 tribes disobeyed God, right? Remember, you had the house of Judah, and I think out of 20 kings, only 8 did right. And the house of Judah, out of 19 kings, how many kings did right in the house of Judah? Out of 19 kings. What do you think, sweetie? How many kings did right out of the house of Israel? She's giving me a look because she doesn't like me to include her. How many? Out of 19 kings, how many kings do you think did right out of the house of Israel? Yes! Wow! She knows more than a lot of pastors out there. 0 kings did right. So we, by our very nature, we deserve a lot of what we get because we have forsaken the national covenant at Mount Sinai. And that's why Ruchus Rusduni wrote a book called The Institutes of Biblical Law. It should be in every seminary. This is what our young Christian leaders should be studying. Not antinomianism, ladies and gentlemen. So continuing, what do we see? As shown earlier, more than 95% of the entire house of Israel was taken into captivity and dispersed throughout the world in what is called the diaspora in Greek. Only a remnant, around 40,000 of those people taken captive to Babylon, returned 7 years later to Jerusalem. There was a mixed multitude, that's mongrel races, ladies and gentlemen, already occupying the territory in their place. Flavius Josephus, Judite historian and a military general of priestly and royal descent, who lived from around 37 to 100 AD, confirms Edomite occupation in southern Judea. Quote, that country is also called Judea and the people Jews, and this name is given also to as many as embrace the religion, though of other nations. But then upon what foundation so good a governor as Hyrcanus, grandson of Mattathias, patriarch of the Maccabees, a family of Judite priests of 2nd and 1st centuries BC, took upon himself to compel these Edomians, these Edomites, either to become Jews or Judahites, or to leave their country, deserves great consideration. I suppose it was because they had long ago been driven out of the land of Edom and had seized on and possessed the tribe of Simeon. Now, their land, not the people, ladies and gentlemen. And all the southern part of the tribe of Judah, which was the peculiar inheritance of the worshippers of the true God without idolatry. Continuing, Hyrcanus took also Dora and Marissa, cities of Idumea, and subdued all the Idumeans. He subdued all of the Edomites, ladies and gentlemen, and permitted them to stay in that country if they would circumcise their genitals and make use of the laws of the Jews from the tribe of Judah. And they were so desirous of living in the country of their forefathers that they submitted to the use of circumcision and of the rest of the Jewish or Judahite ways of living, at which time, therefore, this befell them, that they were hereafter known other than Jews, ladies and gentlemen. So now you have Edomites coming in into the stock of Judah, ladies and gentlemen. Now that's taken from, end quote, the new complete works of Josephus, Jewish Antiquities, 1999, Book 13, Chapter 9, Section 1, and fine print note number 1, pages 438 to 439. Right, so that's what we see. Now, John Hyrcanus, now this is taken from Encyclopedia Judaica, Volume 6, 1971, page 378. John Hyrcanus, an Israelite, conquered the whole of Edom and undertook the forced conversion of its inhabitants to Judaism, faith of the Israelites, Josephus Antiquities 9, 1. Therefore, the Edomites became a section of the Jewish people. So now you have the tribe of Judah getting an infusion of the Edomites. Now remember that God hated Edom, hated Esau, Edom, Edomiah, but he loved Jacob, Israel, right? Jacob, Israel comprises the 13 tribes, including Joseph's 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. This is confirming the Abrahamic covenant, which Judeo-Christianity rejects. During the time that the southern kingdom of Judah was practically empty, during the Babylonian captivity, the Edomites were driven out of Mount Seir by a heavy invasion of an Arab people called the Nabateans from the east. They drove the Edomites westward. They could not move southwest or straight west into the Egyptian territory because the Edomians weren't strong enough to fight the Egyptians. Instead, they advanced slightly northwest and took over the southerly half of what had been the kingdom of Judah and settled there. The books of Ezra and Nehemiah show a remnant population of approximately 42,600 returning to Judea from Babylon. Slightly over 8,000 of these were not from any tribe of Israel. In other words, only 34,000 of the 42,000 that came back were Israelites of the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and a few Levites among them. So to say that God is just about race mixing everybody together is simply not true. And that's not a hatred of races. But remember, through the Abrahamic covenant, through God's peculiar treasure, we're to be a blessing to the world. And that blessing is that Jesus Christ would come through Abraham's seed. This is all the way going back to Genesis 3:15, the seed of the women. And Jesus Christ could not come forth if he had an infusion of the satanic seed. That's why Satan wanted to try to graft his seed in, and therefore Jesus would just be, would have the bloodline of Satan in his veins, right? Coming from that. Now remember that Jesus is all God, all the chromosomes put into the virgin birth of Mary, but Mary had to be from the pure stock of Israel. Mary could not have, and that's why her genealogy is covered in Luke 3. Mary could not have infusion of, she couldn't have Esau or Shilahite or the Hittite blood or any of these Moabite blood. She couldn't have all of this seed of the serpent line in her if the first prophecy of Jesus Christ was to come forth. If the Bible has any validity, ladies and gentlemen. So continuing here, in other words, only 34,000 of the 42,000 that came back were Israelites of the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and a few Levites among them. That's why you have to understand, for the white people in America, you have to understand that there is being a war waged against you politically, right? That's why you have the critical race theory going on. And that's why, you've been gaslit that you're just this horrible person because you're Caucasian. And so therefore, you just have to lay down, and kiss the boot of everybody else and throw your lineage out the window. And so now I'm grateful, not in the way that bad things are happening, but I'm grateful that it's just not lukewarm anymore. I'm grateful now that people can see that both the Democrat Party, the woke left, was Jewish, and then you have the GOP has been corrupted by Judaism as well. And they're just different sides of the same coin. That's neoconservatism was created by majority by Jews. Bolshevism by majority was created by Jews. So it's not just Zionism, ladies and gentlemen. Zionism was created by Jews. So continuing. The returning Israelite remnant was too few in number to drive out the numerous warlike Edomites. The only solution was to settle in the little territory left to them. To give you an idea of the size of that area, the entire territory of the 12-tribe nation of Israel, before it broke up, placed in Southern California, would extend from the Mexico border to the southerly part of Los Angeles, and inland from the coast, it never was more than 40 miles wide. Now divide the territory into thirds. The northern two-thirds of the territory comprise the Kingdom of Israel. That's the 10-tribe northern kingdom. The remaining one-third of the land in the southern portion was the Kingdom of Judah. The southerly half of that one-third was now occupied by the Edomites, the only land left over for a small portion of the true Judahites and Benjaminites to settle in. Remember that Paul was a Benjaminite before the captivity, and Jesus was from the tribe of Judah, right? And Benjamin was a light for the tribe of Judah. Before the captivity, the tribe of Judah had been on the south and the tribe of Benjamin on the north, with the city of Jerusalem lying right on the boundary line between them. Judah was again located on the south side, but Benjamin was pushed far to the north. Benjamin could not just locate to its former place because Samaria was there. Isaiah, Kings, and Chronicles states that when the Assyrians captured the northern kingdom of Israel and deported all of its inhabitants, they brought other people from Assyria and settled them in Samaria. That's why Jesus Christ said, I have come but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel, because Jesus Christ was fulfill the Abrahamic covenant. I covered in a 10-part series. That's a biblical law case internationally. It is now public record, ladies and gentlemen. They purposely failed to state any settlement in Galilee, the northernmost portion, because the land was left vacant. The Benjaminites were thus pushed to the north by the Judahites as they returned after the captivity. The Benjaminites had to leapfrog over Samaria to the vacant land in the north called Galilee, right? Galilee was Christ's own hometown of Nazareth, right? Matthew 2:23. And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem, down close to Jerusalem, but his family home was up in Nazareth. Most of Christ's converts were from Galilee, and of the 12 disciples, only Judas was a Jew. Judas Iscariot is a corruption of the Hebrew word Ish-Karioth, meaning a man of Kerioth. Kerioth is a little village down in the southwesterly portion of Judea, down in the territory occupied by the Edomites. Judas was an Edomite Jew, seed of Satan, and he was the only Jew of the 12. The other 11 disciples were called Galileans, therefore Benjaminites, which was the seed of the woman. Acts 2, verse 7. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? Luke. Now that's taken from the Cain Satanic Seed Line by Bertrand Comparet, pages 22 to 24. Now, referring in your New Testament to Luke chapter 22, verses 54 to 59, and the space of 1 hour after another confidently affirms, saying, Of truth, this fellow, he's talking about Peter, also was with him, for he is a Galilean. Romans 11:1. I say then, hath God cast away his people? Judeo-Christianity says, absolutely. But God says, God forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So we have Edomite Jews. Herod, an Edomite chieftain, conquered and became king of Judea under the Roman Empire. The Romans in 40 BC recognized him as governor with the title ethnarch, and in 37 BC they formally recognized him as a local king of Judea. He was subject to Roman foreign policy, but had complete self-government at home. What do we see here? The new complete works of Josephus under the Jewish War, books 4, chapters 4 through 6, Josephus continues to tell of the horrible conduct of these Edomite Jews within the besieged city of Jerusalem while it was undergoing siege by Titus in the year 70 AD. Their robbery and massacre of the inhabitants inflicted probably more casualties than the Roman army did. In the Jewish Encyclopedia, the article Edom concludes with these words: the Edomites are found today in modern Jewry. So even within the Jewish Encyclopedia, their authoritative works, we find that the Edomites are found today in modern Jewry. These Edomites had come in first when they were given full citizenship by John Hyrcanus. And second, they had come in as a wave of conquerors under Herod. That is, the same Herod who tried to murder Jesus Christ as a baby. Revelation 12, verse 4. Chapter 2 of St. Matthew relates the story of the visit of the Magi to find and worship Jesus Christ, King of the Israelites. Verse 3 states, when Herod the king heard this, he was terrified, and all Jerusalem with him. Why was he terrified? Wouldn't you be excited if that was your Messiah coming? This followed by the murder of all children 2 years and younger in Bethlehem, as well as all that were in neighborhoods around Bethlehem. Verse 16. Same thing going on today, right? Don't you find the IDF, man, they have no problem killing kids, man. Unarmed kids, no big deal. This is scriptural support. Now, there are different nuances. There are probably some IDF that are screwed up by just murdering unarmed people, because that does mess with your mind. That is a very unnatural thing. And that's the problem is that these international Jewry gets the Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, Kindred, Celtic, Scandinavian peoples to go in and do their dirty work. And then you have a lot of our boys coming back home, and they're just really messed up in the head, because participating in a lot of this slaughter, would mess you up. And so, my heart goes out to our military that have been betrayed, ladies and gentlemen, been betrayed. So what do we see? This is scriptural support of the facts just presented that Judea was occupied and controlled by Canaanite Edomite Jews. Herod was an Edomite from the serpent seed that attempted to murder Jesus Christ. The man-child mentioned in the following scripture, Satan attempted to devour Jesus Christ as an infant. Since Lucifer could not pollute the line of Judah before the birth of Christ, nor destroy the God-child, his only remaining strategy would be to counterfeit the seed of the woman. Temporarily, this tactic has been extremely successful. Revelation 12, 1 through 5, reveals in symbols the enmity between Satan and the woman who gave birth to Jesus Christ. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon. You notice that red seems to be the symbol of communism, right? Red dragon, having 7 horns and 7 crowns upon his head, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered for to devour her child as soon as it was born. See, I reject the satanic, heliocentric, and evolutionary cosmological construct. I go by the geocentric, the biblical creation account. As a Christian, I believe what Genesis says. And so I do believe that the stars are celestial beings. They are. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne, right? And this is what we await as Christians. We await the second coming of Jesus Christ. And all families of the earth are blessed through the Abrahamic covenant. The problem is the seed of the serpent is infiltrated and corrupted. Matthew 2:6, and thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, art not least among the princes of Judea, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel, right? Shall rule my people Israel. So that is confirming physical Israel is still in existence today. Jesus Christ is the King of Israel. That's why in Romans it says all Israel shall be saved. It says God has not cast away his people. The successor to Herod, who died in 4 BC, was his son Herod Archelaus, to whom was left the kingdom of Judea. The Romans were too wise to trust somebody with a kingdom when they did not know anything about him. They gave him a trial period as governor under the title ethnarch. Herod gave them 10 years of the most miserable misrule that any nation ever had, 4 BC to 6 AD, resulting in the people petitioning Rome to send a Roman to govern them. The Romans tried Herod Archelaus, found him guilty of misrule, and banished him to Vienna. From that time on, there were a series of Roman governors called procurators. Pontius Pilate was number 6 in that series. Therefore, the military government was entirely in the hands of the Roman procurators. The collection of taxes for Rome was entirely under the supervision of the Roman procurator. However, the Edomite Jews had control of the entire religious government and the temple. They also had control in all respects of the civil government. John 11, 47 to 48. John chapter 11, 47 to 48. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees at council and said, what do we? For this man doth many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and our nation. Notice that Jesus Christ was not only confirmed by genealogy, but he was confirmed by the miracles that were prophesied in the Old Testament. Now, were they excited about that? They go, no. They clearly admit that Jesus Christ was doing the miracles as foretold or prophesied in the Old Testament. So what was their strategy? To embrace the Messiah? No, to reject the Messiah. That's why you had that rabbi talking about, now, if you ask an Orthodox Jew, an Orthodox rabbi, my opinion, he says, my opinion, Jesus is pretty stinky right now because he's been boiling in a special place of hell in hot excrement. That's your Judeo-Christian heritage? Interesting. So, started reading this book, ladies and gentlemen. Where is it? And it's encouraging. It's encouraging. The Hyphenated Heresy, ladies and gentlemen. Started reading it. I am thoroughly enjoying it right now. I recommend that you purchase the book. I'm not affiliated, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think that this man would want to be affiliated with me because this is too hardcore for most. So, hide your power, ladies and gentlemen, as Nick Fuentes says. We got to be wise as serpent, gentle as doves. So, continuing, Jesus Christ became a serious threat to the Pharisees and Sadducees. He was explaining to the people the utter evil of the Jewish economic and religious systems under which they were living. His utter condemnation is expressed throughout the Gospels. Yes, all right. So, 34 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to pick this up in another video, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 6,000-year war that most will not talk about going on. And it started in the Garden of Eden, ladies and gentlemen. But I think it's time for people to know what's going on. You can only spit on the Anglo-Saxon Germanic kindred Celtic and Scandinavian peoples for so long. And there is a statement, when the Saxon begins to hate. When the Saxon begins to hate, it's not a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a good thing. So God bless you. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying warm. I hope that your electricity is on, ladies and gentlemen. We are in troubled times. We found out that both the Democrat Party and the Republican Party through AIPAC and other Jewish organizations don't really care about America. Trump doesn't care about America because he was converted to Judaism in 2017, correction. And so exciting times, but what I like about it is when we're lukewarm, we can't really solve any things. But now to serve God, you either got to be cold or hot. If you're lukewarm, Judeo-Christianity produces lukewarm Christians, produces weak Christians, effeminate Christians, it produces cowards, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a great time for the gospel to be proclaimed, yes, boldly, the gospel of Jesus Christ, and to expose those who hate Jesus Christ. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not filled with hatred. I don't hate Jews, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to say that I don't. I feel sorry for a lot of them because they're under satanic rule, and the people at the top do not care about the Jewish population. That's where you get such concepts as Hannibal Directive and things of that sort. And they will use false flags, even on their own people. They will murder their own people to institute and instigate wars. They are warlike people, ladies and gentlemen. These are terrorists, ladies and gentlemen. They implement terror throughout the world. And that's exactly what they've done since 1948. And how they treated the Palestinians. And how they're treating them today. And how they treat everyone else. How they treated white Christians. 30 million white Christians were slaughtered under the banner of Bolshevism, which was 80% Jewish. Communism or Bolshevism is Judaism, ladies and gentlemen. Well, God bless you. We'll pick this up in the next video. Thank you. Bye.